Hello and a very warm welcome to all the viewers and listeners of Zero Filter podcast. Today we are again up with a very special guest who has a very uh, specific exposure in psychology. She has more than a decade of experience in helping people out in terms of the challenges we usually face on a day-to-day basis mentally, because these are not the areas that everybody likes to talk a lot about publicly. So today we have Vidushi Chandelier with us, who has a great exposure in terms of helping thousands of people in her journey of mental health domain. And we'll be talking about various psychological issues, what challenges we are currently facing these days, and a lot is going to be there in the discussion throughout the episode. So, a very warm welcome to you, Vitushi. Really nice to have you here on the episode.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prince, for having me today. I think it's such a pleasure to be here and talk about things and make people more aware because these things are a part of our daily day-to-day life and these are very much required. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Great, great. Looking forward to a fantastic conversation with Ushi. I do have a lot of doubts, queries as well. Then I would like to get some answer on. So, Vidushi, starting from the very core issue, uh, आज के टाइम पे लाइक कॉर्पोरेट में वी हैव अ स्पेसिफिक लाइफस्टाइल लाइक एवरीबॉडी वांट्स टू गेट अ जॉब एंड देन a fixed template is there that home loan EMIs are going to start, corporate work pressure is going to be there. Then we'll think about resigning and stuff like this. The core issue is there is, since a lot of information available today, आज के टाइम पे differentiation has become very less. For example, we use terms like मुझे डिप्रेशन हो रहा है, मुझे एंग्जायटी हो रही है, क्या मुझे एडीएचडी तो नहीं है, या फिर डू आई हैव सम स्ट्रेस डिसऑर्डर और हाइपरटेंशन एंड स्टफ लाइक दिस. Because of the Instagram reels and the stuff which is available online today with us, we are not able to differentiate, and we use these terms very casually. Like anybody can literally say कि थोड़ा स्ट्रेस हुआ ऑफिस में, दैट मुझे डिप्रेशन हो रहा है, या फिर मेरे मार्क्स अच्छे नहीं आए, मुझे डिप्रेशन हो रहा है, या फिर मुझे एंग्जाइटी हो रही है. So this differentiation is getting reduced. Uh, if you could throw some light on what exactly does somebody have to look at to identify कि whether something is there that they need to reach out to some expert, या फिर it is just a day to day thing.
Right. I think that is a very much required question for nowadays, what we are facing, and people are getting a lot of exposure with respect to mental health content out there on Instagram and so many other places. तो बहुत सारी टर्मिनोलॉजी सीख ली हैं सबने कि ADHD है, मुझे डिप्रेशन है, मुझे एंग्जाइटी है, and I'm facing so many other challenges. So, but how to know if you actually have it or not? And it's not just about corporate people and who are working in the sector. It's also about teenagers who are also there getting a early exposure of these labels and applying it on themselves. So I think it is becoming a bit concerning on that side. So we'll start with the label, that how the label works and is it required or not, or to what extent is it helpful or not. So maybe we'll start from there. तो कोई भी चीज़ को जब हम लेबल करते हैं, अगर आप 15 साल पहले देखो तो हमारे पास इतना वोकैब्युलरी नहीं था टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट अ पर्सन इज़ गोइंग थ्रू। दे यूज्ड टू से दैट ओके मुझे अच्छा नहीं लग रहा है, आई एम फीलिंग सैड, या फिर पता नहीं मेरे साथ क्या हो रहा है। सो वी यूज्ड टू एक्सप्रेस इन दिस काइंड ऑफ लैंग्वेज, बट आप देखेंगे धीरे-धीरे जो लैंग्वेज है वो ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम दैट हैज़ चेंज्ड एंड दैट हैज़ बिकम मोर रिफाइंड इन अ वे ऑफ एक्सप्रेसिंग योरसेल्फ एंड व्हाट आर यू फीलिंग right now and what kind of emotions are you having. And this is a good part that we are able to tell that, okay, this is what I am going through. But it also has the other side where, people are overusing these kind of words by just learning it from a 30-second reel. Now there are so many reels that are floating out there, the mental health content, जो कि शायद आपको बता रहे हैं that if you have these signs, you have this. So people tend to self-diagnose themselves in that case. That okay, if I pick 3 signs from there, that it is very relatable. ये जो बोल रहे हैं वो तो मुझे भी है. And whatever signs they are coming out with, that I am also facing. ADHD, for example, hyperactivity is there, and then there is a attention issue that is there. Now, almost everybody is having attention issue at this point because the kind of lives we are living. So, having attention issue does not mean you have ADHD. For every clinical aspect of psychology, for any diagnosis that needs to be given, has a proper assessment that we do as a psychologist. And only after doing the background check and the case history taking that we do and the assessment that we have taken is when we decide do you have it or not, which is a lengthy process. A 30-second reel or a 60-second reel cannot tell you that you have this condition or you're going through this condition. The problem comes when it becomes too relatable for people and they start to self-diagnose themselves and start to say that, okay, I have this problem, and not just label themselves. So, label helps you to some extent saying that, okay, I have this issue. But when you start to carry that label and say that, okay, this is all I have, but you don't want to explore the problem inside that thing. So, let's say so many people say, I have anxiety and I have anxiety issue. But what is that anxiety about? Is it about, the upcoming thing that is coming in your life? Or is it about some fear you are having? What is that anxiety about? So, what is the core issue? Not until people understand that, labeling does not help you. It makes you feel more stagnant in life, because the more you carry that label and don't understand the aspect of the concern, the actual concern that is lying below the surface, is where the problem starts in the life. So, yeah, it is very important as much as you use the label to understand where to use it, when to use it, and not to self diagnose yourself quickly based on some five checklists that's been given by someone out there. These mental health days are also equally important in terms of gaining information. So we can see them as more of a channel to start these conversations, but not to limit ourselves there. So go explore what it is, what the concern is about. Do not limit yourself on that anxiety or depression label that you have given it to yourself. So yeah, that's how I think it can be for people, for it to be more helpful for them.
Mm. Okay, and another question that comes along with this is, when does somebody know that they need to reach out to somebody, or they shall handle it at their own level? Like, is there any specific threshold कि ठीक है अब इतना हो गया है that I need to reach out to somebody? Or what happens usually is कि we have that stigma that we
Mhm.
cannot reach out to anybody, or if we are doing this, if we are sharing something around this, then people will say कि ये सब क्या है, you need not think about this, तुम्हारे पास बहुत time है, because of which you are thinking a lot, and that these issues are not taken seriously. So when does somebody know that, okay, now it's the time for me to start reaching out to somebody, I cannot handle it myself?
Right, right, absolutely. So I think this is one point where people are confused कि कब थेरेपिस्ट के पास जाना है, कब उनको रीच आउट करना है, किसको रीच आउट करना है, कौन से मेंटल हेल्थ प्रैक्टिशनर के पास जाना है. So people are not still aware about these many things. So when to reach out is when you start to feel कि मेरा जो day to day life है अब वो impact होने लग गया है. Every day I'm waking up and I'm feeling certain things that are not okay, and it has kind of become a pattern for me that almost a week it has been continuing over and over again, and it's not getting better. So when anything that is not getting better, then that is a sign for you that okay, you need to reach out to somebody. So maybe first people usually reach out to somebody they know, like their friends or relative or somebody they trust, any partner that they have. उसके बाद में दे डिसाइड ओके कि अभी जाना है या नहीं जाना. तो कुछ लोगों का काम उसमें भी हो जाता है कि व्हेन यू रीच आउट टू अ फ्रेंड एंड टेल देम दैट ओके दिस इज माय प्रॉब्लम एंड दे लिसन टू देम, वैलिडेट देम एंड द प्रोसेस गोज वेल. तो कुछ लोगों का काम उसमें बन जाता है कि ठीक है अभी मुझे बेटर फील हो रहा है एंड आई डोंट फील लाइक गोइंग टू अ प्रैक्टिशनर or any therapist. But in some cases, that doesn't help you much. And still, the thing keeps continuing in your life and you're not feeling better. You still feel that discomfort from inside, कि नहीं कुछ ठीक नहीं है, and something is wrong. So that is the point then when you can decide to reach out to a therapist or a practitioner to understand, not to diagnose yourself, to understand what is there. क्योंकि अगर आपको समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, that's a clear sign that you need to reach out now.
Okay, okay. So if you feel like your day-to-day life is not getting better, if you feel like that challenge is arising every time that same situation arises, then probably there is something more to that, instead of trying to resolve it on yourself. But since Vidushi, therapy is the most common term that we hear about usually whenever we talk about psychology or any challenges like this. Uh, but I have spoken to a few people. What they have usually said is कि sometimes they keep changing therapists. They keep let us say a few sessions they have taken. It is not I would say affordable as well for many people, but somehow they manage to get some therapists. But after a few sessions they feel like, nahi, I need to change it, and then they keep hopping from one to another, and then ultimately they say that therapists were not also able to help me out. So what is the core issue due to which therapy is not able to help? Is there something more to it, or do people need to try something else, or what exactly is the reason behind therapy not working for some people?
Right, right. So first of all, changing therapists, I would like to, just clarify that कि अगर कोई बार-बार से therapist को change कर रहा है and going from one therapist to another, so first thing is it is okay to change therapist as long as it's working out between both of you and your therapist. Because not every client is for every therapist. It is like that. So maybe I'm specialized in some area, but my client expectations are totally different from that, and I'm not able to cater to those expectation at all. And they're feeling like कि नहीं ये therapist मेरे लिए नहीं है, and the kind of thing I'm looking for from them, it's not there. So it's okay. They can go to other therapists. I myself will, if it's not working out, I myself will refer them to somebody else who is more helpful for them. So it's okay to change therapist. Now, with somebody who's constantly changing therapist, going from one to another therapist, they need to understand and look at what exactly they're looking for, first of all, in the therapy process. क्या किस तरह के एक्सपेक्टेशन है आपके थेरेपी से? Some people come with very high expectations in therapy as well. For them, therapy does not work as a quick fix because therapy does not guarantee a quick fix. It's a long process, and it helps you in a slow pace and to understand your core concerns. तो core concerns को समझने में थोड़ा वक्त लगता है, and वो वक्त जो लोग देने को तैयार होते हैं and who stay in therapy, for them therapy works very well. But then people who keep switching therapists, going from one to another, they need to understand what is my expectation, first of all, from the therapist, and what am I looking from the therapy process. मेरा एंड गोल क्या है यहाँ पर, मैं क्या इम्प्रूव करना चाह रहा हूँ या चाह रही. तो जब तक वो क्लैरिटी नहीं आएगी जो भी क्लाइंट है उसको, तब तक मे बी दे विल फील लाइक कि ओ थिंग्स आर नॉट वर्किंग आउट. 3 सेशन ले लिए अभी तक कुछ नहीं हुआ, 4 सेशन ले लिए अभी तक कुछ नहीं हुआ. इट्स नॉट अबाउट नंबर ऑफ सेशन, इट्स अबाउट व्हाट प्रोग्रेस आर यू मेकिंग इन द थेरेपी प्रोसेस इटसेल्फ. तो ऐसा बहुत लोगों के साथ होता है. And the other question that you asked is that why therapy does not work out. So yeah, in such cases, therapy doesn't really work out, where people keep switching from one therapist to another and then another and then another. You have to stay. For improvement to be there, you have to stay at one place and be there. Okay, and just be comfortable with the therapist first of all. If you're not comfortable, then change the therapist. But if you are not comfortable with everybody, that also says something, that is like a pattern out there that you need to watch out as a sign that okay, something is wrong here. So one thing is that now, but there are other cases जहाँ पे therapy still काम नहीं करती हैं, जहाँ पे let's say client stayed back and still therapy फिर भी नहीं काम कर रही है. So I will maybe give you example of this to understand better. So let's say I had a client, and for almost a year they were in therapy process. So in the entire year they made progress around understanding their concern कि उनको गुस्सा क्यों आता है, anger issues क्यों exist कर रहे हैं, कहाँ से pattern start हुए, and all of these things. And they had this avoidance behavior where they were not able to go and talk to people, and they used to avoid difficult conversations, right? Now they understood it very well that progress was made, but where things was not working out, कि जब वो थेरेपी रूम से वापस अपने घर जाते हैं या फिर जो उनका एक्चुअल लाइफ है वहाँ जाते हैं, their things were not improving in terms of the patterns that were already existing. So understanding pattern does not necessarily mean कि वो चेंज हो ही जाएगा, क्योंकि मुझे कुछ cognitively या intellectually समझ आ गया है अपने बारे में, does not mean that will bring change. For change to happen, I need to take action. So if there is a difficult conversation that has to be done, I will do it. My therapist will not be able to do it. तो जब आप थेरेपी रूम से बाहर जाते हो, तो वो कॉन्वर्सेशन आपको ही करनी पड़ेगी. यू हैव अंडरस्टूड कि कॉन्वर्सेशन क्यों नहीं हो रही है, मैं अवॉइडेंट हूँ या मेरे ये पैटर्न्स हैं, आई हैव एंगर इशू, ऑल दोज थिंग्स. बट in order to make it happen, you are the only person who can do it. And with this client, this was the thing for the entire year, you know. things were not working out because the same pattern was still existent, and they start to feel like that, okay, therapy is not working out. So then I think one of the session where I was having this conversation with the client, and I kind of asked this question that what is it, making it so difficult to bring it out in action for you? Do you think that is
Mhm.
the problem here? Do you think that is the barrier here for you? So that reflection kind of changed their perspective that, okay, this is me not taking action where the barrier is coming in between, and them identifying this thing. And then I think later on, they took a break from therapy, and that is where things changed for them, where they started to take it in action, whatever they learned in therapy. So ultimately, whatever you're learning in therapy, in the counseling room, in the therapy room, you have to ultimately go out in the actual world and apply it and use it. Knowing it does not necessarily mean it's going to solve your problem, and it's going to, make you a better person and improve you from within. Yes, knowing really helps you. That is the first stage. Without crossing that stage, you cannot move to the next part of it where you take action. But without taking action, people start to feel extremely stagnant in the therapy process, and it
Mhm.
doesn't, feel like that they are progressing in any direction.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's
So,
how, it.
so therapy is not like a medicine that we can take. कि आपने एक tablet लिया and then you see the impact. You'll have to apply this. Plus, usually what happens is कि I'm going to the therapist. I'm able to understand कि ठीक है ये सब issue है. I need to let us say if anxiety is an issue, I get afraid in a few situations. I need to actually confront that situation more and more rather than having a deeper understanding of why it happens, how it happens. You'll actually have to put yourself out there to face that situation by yourself. Uh, which brings us to another question, which is like for example, there was a very famous movie you must have watched it in which Alia Bhatt and Shah Rukh Khan were there. So Love You
Right.
Zindagi, I think was the name of that movie. So in that movie,
Right.
what was shown was that the client is in some way getting dependent emotionally on the therapist, depending that okay, that person is going to be solving my problems. Does this create dependency as well? Because काफी बार there is a fear in people's mind कि how can somebody who is not in my position help or guide me, and if that person is helping or guiding me, what if after some time that person will not be there with me, will I still be able to navigate through those challenges? So does therapy create some sort of a dependency as well amongst the clients, and how can this be overcome in case it does?
Right. I think that's a very good question, and that really happens in the therapy process. तो इसलिए जो सबसे फर्स्ट सेशन होता है इन विच वी एक्सप्लेन द क्लाइंट हाउ थेरेपी वर्क्स और उसका प्रोसेस क्या होता है एंड इट्स गोना टेक सम टाइम. We also explain this path where we let them know that the ultimate goal of therapy is to make you independent as a person, so that you can take your own decisions. You can decide for yourself in terms of what to do in a particular moment when you're feeling overwhelmed या आपको गुस्सा आ रहा है or anything is happening. वहाँ आपका थेरेपिस्ट नहीं आएगा आपको बताने की कि अब क्या करना है. So the end goal of any therapy process is to make you an independent human where you can function independently without the help of a therapist, right? So this is one thing. Now, in some cases, it really happens where people start to have that dependency on therapists and start checking in for everything. Should I do this? Should I meet this person or not? Should I go on a date with this person or not? Or, should I take this decision or not? What should I do? You tell me. Because some way they also idealize the therapist as the right person to tell that, okay, this person has been telling me the right things, so maybe they know the right things. But therapist never tells. That's how it is. Therapist will never tell you what to do. It's the therapeutic process that will help you figure out what is the best thing for you so that you can decide for yourself.
Yeah.
If there any therapist out there who's telling that, okay, you do this, you do that, I don't think that is working out between client and the therapist. That is not a very healthy way of practicing the therapy. So, in any therapy process that we practice, the end goal is always to make the client independent and make them feel like that, okay, I am now able to take this decision. Now, how to develop this ability is what the therapy process is about. But as soon as you see the client getting dependent on you, it's the therapist role to let them know that, hey, this is happening. But if I don't stop it right there, what happens that it kind of becomes a pattern where they keeps coming back to the therapist and, keep, asking questions like, okay, what should I do here? And what should I do here? So to stop that and to help them better, to let them know and not to have the dependency developed as a strong dependency on the therapist, because I have to end these sessions after a point. I have to terminate them after a point. I know that as a therapist. And I am also letting the client know after a point that this is not going lifetime. After a point, we have to, let you go to the world out there, to experience things out there, and to take your own decisions without anybody's help. And that is the exact skill we are developing inside this room. But as soon as you walk out of this room, you need to take that skill along with you and you need to decide for yourself. So I think it is somewhere therapist role where you need to find that, okay, if your client is somewhere getting dependent or asking too many questions about, because these are signs of dependency. If a client is somewhere getting dependent on you. So you have to just right there address that and let them know that, okay, if we keep going like this, then therapy might not be very healthy.
Mhm. Okay, okay. Since you said that therapists should not create dependence, if somebody is doing this, then that's not the right approach. A general human tendency, Doshi, is that let us say अगर मैं एक group में हूँ, like let's say if I'm in a group at my office or in my student life, whenever I'm in a group, if I find somebody, let us say out of that group, somebody who is willing to listen to me, let us say there's a friend who listens to whatever I have in my mind, I'll usually find that inclination कि ठीक है, कभी कोई challenge आया तो I can speak to that person. And now what's happening today is that since we generally as humans have the tendency of inclining towards people who listen to us or maybe give us some guidance or sort of stuff like this, today given the fact that AI is coming to our mobile phones, we have the access to somebody answering to us even at 3 a.m. in the morning to the most weird question that can arise in our mind, and that's ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or any AI tool like this. People trying to get therapy or trying to get psychological guidance from tools like this because it feels very tempting to ask कि अभी मेरे को ये challenge आया है. ChatGPT is going to be telling me that okay, probably this is there in your mind, and that sounds attractive as well. कि ठीक है अभी आपका maybe आपका amygdala is getting more active because of which you are having that fear and all that. So that information is very tempting to read, and then we feel like ठीक है, there was somebody to guide us. Is there any real life threat or issue? Maybe you also, since are dealing with clients on a day-to-day basis, do you see people coming up more and more with chat gpt based research कि ठीक है मुझे ये हो सकता है self diagnosis, and then trying to replace therapy with the help of chat gpt or AI tools, and what are the repercussions of this if they are doing it?
Right, right. Absolutely. This is actually a big challenge in the current scenario. And we do get clients जो कि पूरा खुद पे research करके आते हैं and they've googled everything and chat GPT everything कि मुझे क्या क्या conditions हो सकती हैं. So I'll give you an example of one of the clients I had, and this client came with 5 diagnoses that they had. They had anxiety, they had ADHD, they had depression, and they had trauma, and they had attachment issues. And these are the kind of things they told me on the first session that, okay, I have these many conditions, and these are the signs. And very surprisingly, they were very much clear with it about each and every sign and symptoms that they were trying to explain to me. And in ADHD, I feel these kind of signs. In trauma, I'm having these kind of memories. So I was a bit surprised, first of all, that okay, how many things are you dealing with in the first go? But then, I also took a pause to understand where this all is coming from. So I just, asked them a question that how much time do you spend watching the mental health related content on the YouTube or maybe on the chat GPT if you are trying to research something? And how do you got to know about all these things that you know? Because it's quite surprising to me that you got so much of insight about yourself. So then he told me that he spent about 3 to 4 hours a day just to do this. Now, if somebody is doing just that and trying to fit each and every behavior of them into a label or psychological label, that somewhere leads them to, understand that, okay, I have these many conditions. But like I said, any clinical diagnosis requires very in-depth understanding of a person's history, their current concerns, and along with that, we need to do assessments to understand if this person actually meeting this criteria or not. There are very clear criteria to diagnose any condition out there. But because people are now spending more time trying to fix and trying to, find that label for themselves, because it's a human tendency, we need to give meaning to something that is happening with us. We are, looking for that meaning, that what label should I give, what condition I might have. And since there's a lot of exposure of mental health related concern that is floating on the internet, people have become more curious about themselves, and in that curiosity they go and check out to various platforms like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Google, and everywhere, to just fix themselves to a box and label that, okay, I might have this condition also, because this is so relatable. Whatever they are saying is so relatable. And even the chat gpt, whenever you type out the symptom, it has the tendency to box it in certain labels and symptoms, and ultimately coming up with certain diagnosis, which
Mhm.
again might lead a client or a person to think that, okay, I have this condition, now what to do. And the self diagnosis is something that is the most dangerous thing in the current scenario that is happening, where people are like, no, yeah, I have it. And they've normalized it so well. Yeah, I do have ADHD. I know that. I know it. And did you get it tested? Is, these are two different things. I have depression. Yeah, I know that. I have these many symptoms. So they're also very well versed about the symptoms that comes under it and what is required for the symptoms. So they'll come into the therapy and straight up start to tell you that, okay, this I have, now diagnose me and just be done. So that is so that's, yeah, that's how it works for now. And these are the kind of clients we get to see for sure.
So they're like, diagnosis to हमने कर दिया है. Now it is your part to just treat us. Diagnosis we have done
Right,
ourselves.
right. We
Okay.
just need
So
validation from you. I know I have it. You just validate it, and that's all.
okay, okay. So I think then we need to probably talk a bit more about how does the AI part impact somebody's mind if they're not even reaching out to any therapist, they, or let's say anybody who is an expert in psychology or a doctor as well, they find it like a shortcut, ease of access. You just click on your phone and open the app and get every kind of possible guidance on your emotions and stuff like this. So even to be honest, I have also tried to speak about some day-to-day challenges that I'm coming across, but where do we set that borderline that okay, you need not go beyond this, कि एक certain level के बाद if you're still using chat gpt or AI to help you, it might rather affect you negatively in your life. So I think we can throw some light on this. सबको लगता है कि फ्री में थेरेपिस्ट या फिर फ्री में साइकोलॉजिकल गाइडेंस मिल रहा है हमें. What are the side effects? Yeah, if you have seen any in your day-to-day dealing with the people, is there any negative or any harmful impact of using it to get psychological guidance, or is it okay to a certain level?
Hmm. Right. So, definitely, if somebody is spending more time there and वो सीधे जाके चैट जीपीटी को अपना सारा पर्सनल डेटा और अपना पर्सनल इंफॉर्मेशन बता रहे हैं, that has repercussions. But I think the most important repercussions that we can look into is you tend to develop this conformity का dependency, कि मुझे हर चीज़ जाके वहाँ कंफर्म करनी है, क्या मैं ठीक किया या नहीं किया, तो चैट जीपीटी से पूछेंगे, या फिर मुझे ये करना चाहिए या नहीं करना चाहिए, सो आई आस्क दिस, व्हाट एम आई फीलिंग राइट नाउ, मेरा ये झगड़ा हो गया है तो अब मुझे क्या करना चाहिए नेक्स्ट, मुझे टेक्स्ट में क्या लिखना चाहिए. टू दैट एक्सटेंट पीपल हैव डेवलप द डिपेंडेंसी ऑन द चैट जीपीटी, कि किसी को टेक्स्ट मैसेज में आगे क्या लिखना है वो भी चैट जीपीटी से पूछ के दे आर राइटिंग एंड देन टेलिंग. So somewhere, people are losing out on their basic skills of handling things in life, very small things in life, like कि कोई छोटा सा conflict हो गया उसमें भी कैसे handle करना है. If you're going back and asking ChatGPT about it, then I think that has to be looked into, and because that skill you need to develop in life. हर बार ChatGPT तो नहीं आके आपको बता पाएगा, and then there are cases where you feel helpless. दैट फीलिंग ऑफ हेल्पलेसनेस स्टार्ट्स टू कम क्योंकि आपका डिपेंडेंसी इतना ज़्यादा हो गया है कि अब आपको समझ नहीं आ रहा है कि खुद से कैसे करना है। So slowly and gradually, when things continue like this, then people develop this helplessness, and over a period of time, that kind of turns into a disability, you can say. A kind of disability where I don't know how to have these skills, जो कि प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग स्किल्स भी हो सकती हैं, डिसीजन मेकिंग स्किल्स भी हो सकती हैं, कॉन्वर्सेशनल स्किल्स भी हो सकती हैं, जो हमें नेचुरली आती हैं, बट आने के बाद भी क्योंकि मेरा डिपेंडेंसी वहाँ हो गया, एंड आई हैव आइडलाइज्ड द चैट जीपीटी रिस्पॉन्सेज सो मच दैट आई फील कि शायद वही सही बताएगा, या फिर उसी से जाकर पूछेंगे तभी तभी शायद मेरा डिसीजन सही जाएगा. सो द बैक ऑफ द माइंड पीपल स्टार्ट टू हैव दीज थॉट्स कि अगर उससे नहीं पूछा तो क्या होगा, क्या मैंने गलत डिसीजन तो नहीं ले लिया है, शायद उससे पूछ लेना चाहिए था, देन डिसाइड करना चाहिए था. सो दीज काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स स्टार्ट टू कम ऑन द सरफेस जब आप बहुत ज़्यादा टाइम वहाँ पे स्पेंड कर रहे हो, और डे टू डे लाइफ की कुछ छोटी चीज़ें जो आप खुद ही से कर सकते हो, एंड इट्स वेरी स्मॉल, नथिंग लाइक अ बिग डील अबाउट इट. But then people tend to go there and develop this tendency to be dependent on the ChatGPT responses and what all it is coming up, along. Now, let's say you are facing a conflict or something with a partner or with a friend, somebody. अब आपने पूरा कहानी जाके और ChatGPT पे लिख दिया कि ये सब हो रहा है, अब मुझे क्या करना चाहिए. But ChatGPT will give you some response, but how accurate that will be, that is a very dangerous thing here. क्योंकि चैट जीपीटी को आपकी फ्रेंडशिप की हिस्ट्री के बारे में कुछ नहीं पता, आप दोनों किस तरह के दोस्त हो, नहीं हो, अब तक क्या हुआ, क्या नहीं हुआ. उनको बस जो आप इंफॉर्मेशन दे रहे हो सिर्फ वही पता है, एंड बेस्ड ऑन दैट इट विल गिव यू सम रिस्पॉन्स that might or might not be the right response for you to follow. So that is one very dangerous thing that is coming along, क्योंकि उसका response इतना bias हो सकता है, and based on that if you're deciding, then that might be something that is not good for you. So this danger people need to watch out कि थेरेपिस्ट और चैट जीपीटी में क्या फ़र्क होता है. तो उनमें ये फ़र्क होता है कि थेरेपिस्ट को आपके बारे में, आपकी हिस्ट्री के बारे में, आपके अब तक के एक्सपीरियंस के बारे में बहुत कुछ पता है, एंड बेस्ड ऑन दैट दे कम अप विथ some kind of mutual solution that you can decide upon, right? Not giving solution, but then they are helping you to have that skill. चैट जीपीटी टोटली ऑपोजिट काम कर रहा है, वो जो आपके पास ऑलरेडी स्किल है वो भी जा रही है आपकी टू डिसाइड अपॉन थिंग्स एंड टू मेक डिसीजंस इन लाइफ, because that dependency is increasing day by day. And the kind of responses that are coming are also extremely biased क्योंकि उसको नहीं पता आप किस तरह के इंसान हो, what kind of things you like, or what kind of personality do you have, what kind of traits you have, what happened to you in the childhood, or what kind of patterns do you hold. Our therapist will identify that, hey, I'm observing that, see, this is happening here again. Maybe they'll identify and let you know, but ChatGPT might give a totally different response, but might not be helpful for the person. But now people have started to blindly follow it because it's free access for everybody. तो जितना मन चाहे रात को 2 बजे, 4 बजे आप सीधे पूछ सकते हैं. तो आई थिंक प्रॉब्लम इज़ द एक्सेस, क्योंकि हमारे पास इतना ज़्यादा एक्सेस है, तो हम उसको ओवर यूज़ करने अब लग रहे हैं, एंड देन सो मेनी पीपल आर developing this dependency on ChatGPT or Gemini or similar platforms like this जहाँ पे अपना बहुत personal information वो जाके share कर देते हैं. But it's almost impossible to replace a therapist with a AI. People say, yeah, it is possible, but it seems like it is possible. But over a period of time, if you see that how you experience emotion जब आपके सामने एक इंसान बैठा होता है, जब आप उसको कुछ बता रहे हो, जब वो respond करता है उस पे, rather than an AI responding to it. The kind of validation you get from the non-verbal cues from a therapist that is there, just by nodding and just by the facial expression, उससे आपको जो वैलिडेशन मिल रहा है, जो काइंड ऑफ द वॉइस दैट इज़ बीइंग यूज्ड, द ह्यूमननेस दैट इज़ देयर, that cannot be replaced by a AI. So, but people feel it is, made to be feel like that कि नहीं ये replaceable है और यहाँ पे replacement किया जा सकता है. And वो kind of responses जो आते हैं लोगों को वो ठीक लगते हैं. We find them more relatable, more validated. तो कुछ ऐसी चीज़ें भी वैलिडेट कई बार गलती से चैट जीपीटी कर देता है जो नहीं करनी चाहिए जहाँ पे इट हैज़ टू बी क्वेश्चन. So I think that is where the danger exists and that has to be looked into.
Okay. Okay, you shared a very interesting insight that people are using Chat GPT to get the guidance, and probably that false sense of validation is leading to them कि ठीक है, मैं and मेरा chatbot are thinking right, but if they change the prompt, then Chat GPT won't take a minute and it can flip the answer as well and apologize very simply. So, like I think in the US recently a case came out wherein parents are suing Chat GPT, OpenAI, for triggering their kid to commit suicide. So chat gpt ka guidance is sort of there has to be some sort of break as to what extent we are depending on chat gpt. And yes, messages send करने के लिए people are putting in the screenshot of the chat कि मेरे को बताओ अब what to respond. And what if the server goes down someday, then what the life would be in case we are, let's say, dependent. And probably this brings us to a very uh, you know bigger threat as well ki the companies that are controlling such tools, what if they do some change in the algorithm, that if you're seeking guidance from their tool and they would want you to think in a certain way, then that could be possible as well by training their model to teach people to move in a particular direction. So yeah, definitely the insights that you shared on using AI uh, are are useful for somebody who was depending or trying to move towards instead of human connection to this ease of access, easy advice. And Vidushi, we would like to get an idea from your side on the corporate part now. Now, see, mental health today, आज के time पे these people who are working in multinational corporations, huge work pressures, stress in life, these are the most vulnerable people, I would say, because burnout is a thing that keeps coming in front of us. Let's say abhi is company mein kuch hua and then us company mein kuch hua because of work pressure and all, people quitting, resigning, or not able to speak up because of EMIs going on, work pressure going on, and societal pressure to be precise. Corporates do have employee wellness programs in which they talk about we helping you in mental health, and we helping you out in terms of any mental challenge that you might face. Do they really make sense, or do they really have a real life impact? This is a very upfront question I'm asking you. Do you think that corporate wellness
Right.
programs on psychology, are they really impactful, or is it just a ticket in the box that the companies are doing just to show or build a reputation?
Right, right. I think that's a very valid question as well, Prince. So I see a lot of companies actually genuinely doing it as well, and then there's another side of it where they're doing it just to showcase that okay, we have this wellness program inside, and we have an in-house team, all of those things. One thing that we need to understand here is कि कोई भी employee जहाँ पे काम करता है, आप कितने भी वहाँ पे थेरेपिस्ट रख लीजिए, कितने भी वहाँ साइकोलॉजिस्ट रख लीजिए, इफ द एनवायरनमेंट ऑफ द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इज नॉट वर्केबल, if the employees are always stuck in a meeting and long meetings are there, there's always a work pressure, untimely calls are happening, and so many things that is impacting their mental health. No matter how many therapists you have, the person will never flourish because there is no scope for them to flourish. There is no environment given for them to flourish. So, first thing, even before having a therapist, the organization needs to look into is the kind of work culture they are setting up with the organization and the people that they have. क्योंकि अगर वर्क कल्चर इस तरह का कॉन्टिन्यूसली रहता है, सो नो मैटर हाउ मेनी टाइम्स दे कम टू अ थेरेपिस्ट and talked to them and went out, okay, कि ऐसे हो रहा है, इतना workload हो रहा है, I don't know how to manage time, and there's a lot of pressure, and there's so many things going on, the person will not be helped, no matter how much we try from our end. It has to be an environment for a person to do things and to apply those things and to flourish in a way so that, their mental health can be better. So this brings us to one aspect that, okay, please, all the organizations who are keeping or having the mental health professionals out there, first please look into your work culture. If you work on that, this need of having a therapist will be much better and will be workable in a way so that your employee will actually be able to perform in a much better way. बट अगर आपका कल्चर वही है और आप सोच रहे हैं कि थेरेपिस्ट रख लेते हैं एंड साइकोलॉजिस्ट रख लेते हैं एंड देन थिंग्स वुड गेट बेटर, दे विल नॉट गेट बेटर. That is the reality of this entire thing that is there. But there are people who reach out not just for the work related concern, but then they do reach out for their personal consent as well to the therapist that is there in the organization. There it is very much helpful for them because some people, it's first time they're going to a therapist because it's easily available. If they had to book a session and go, that would have been a big challenge for them and they would have never reached out to somebody. बट क्योंकि बहुत इजीली अवेलेबल है, उनके ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में है, वहीं पर है, तो उनके लिए थोड़ा-सा आसान हो जाता है वहाँ पे रीच आउट करना एंड बात करना सो दैट दे अंडरस्टैंड कि ओह! थेरेपी वर्क्स लाइक दिस. इवन इफ दे डिसाइड टू कंटिन्यू इट और नॉट, दे आर एट लीस्ट एबल टू एक्सपीरियंस इट in the first hand कि okay, this works like this and this feels better. It kind of feels different than, talking to a regular person. So that is where it is helpful. And like I told you, there's a place where it is not helpful, where, the culture is not in the place and the kind of things happen inside the organization are not in place. And having a therapist, doesn't help to the extent where company expects it or the organization expects it to betterment of the wellness and the well-being of their employees. So I think it is a good thing to have in a world that we're living in right now because the way corporate works, there's always pressure and there's always a lot of work. But you know then directly working with a mental health professional, equally we also need to look into the culture and work on how we can make it better for people to survive and work cordially with each other. So I think this is one place that's a big gap out there that needs to be worked upon.
Mm. Okay, so it has to be a top-down approach rather than fixing the symptoms. You need to fix the cause that is leading to that stress instead of making therapists set to help out employees who are due to work pressure uh, having the need of a therapist. You need to fix the work culture. Uh, as recently it was in the news a lot. You must have heard that the CEO of Infosys, Mr. Mahan Murthy, he said something around 70-hour work week, and he said that if you are passionate, you need to work. If India really wants to grow, then we need to work 70 hours a week. And there were many CEOs as well supporting that. But the same company, Infosys, got fined in France because of that, overtime that it was asking the employees to do. So that unevenness is there definitely in our work culture as well, because of which people are not able to, probably, talk a bit openly about, especially in their own organizations. कि अगर मैंने कुछ बोला, what if that thing gets leaked, that okay, I'm talking about my manager to the therapist which is in the organization, what if this gets leaked to the team, what will they think about me? So that is another risk that people usually come across. So do you think if somebody is having some sort of challenge, do they need to reach out to their own company's wellness program or stuff like this, or do they need to start exploring outside, like हमें बाहर ही देखना चाहिए, या within that organization you need to search out the options?
Right. So I think in order to reach out, if you have a therapist right there, it is okay to, just go and talk to them in the first hand because we do practice in our ethics. If somebody is practicing the therapy process or somebody's a therapist, then we do have this ethic called confidentiality, which means whatever you share with us, that is going to be confidential in nature, will not be shared outside with anybody, not your manager, not your husband, not your wife, nobody. Okay, that's going to be stay here until unless there is a risk involved, which means there is a risk involved to you to harm yourself, or there's a risk involved that you will be harming somebody else. Until unless this happens, we do not break that confidentiality, because then it becomes about the safety of the person. कि जब safety threat पर आ गए, then तो we have to break the confidentiality and reach out to the concerned people and let them know कि नहीं, we need to take care of and we need to look into it. So other than that, the confidentiality is something that is there. So whenever somebody is reaching out to a therapist, they need to understand that whatever they're sharing, it's going to be confidential, will not be shared to any manager or any out there any other person, colleague, no matter if you are a friends with them. So let's say I'm a therapist in an organization and I am a very good friend, and this third person comes to me to talk to me, I am not supposed to share what they've shared with me to this person, because just because they're a friend of mine. So that becomes an unethical practice in itself, if that is being done somewhere, that is being practiced somewhere, because it is the job of therapists to make a person feel safe. If they're not feeling safe and coming and talking to me, then I don't think I can be a therapist, first of all. No matter what I say or how big talks I am doing there, but I can't be a therapist if a person is not feeling safe enough to come and talk to me, to share the things with me, and they are having second thought constantly that, okay, should I tell or not? Should I tell or not? So I think that has to be cleared out with people when you are having a person in organization who is a psychologist, who's a counselor or a therapist, that okay, what whoever is coming here, that breach will not happen, so that they're comfortable reaching out. First of all, that approachability has to be established before people even come to you. And I think somewhere that is also the role of organization and the therapist board to inform this to the organization and the people who are working there, that that's how it works, because most of the people don't understand how therapy works and what to talk and what to say and what to do there once you go there. So that thing has to be cleared out with the people who are there in the organization. Now, like I said, some things has to be communicated with the manager, but then since the person is not feeling safe enough to go to a manager and talk about it, they are going to a therapist to talk about this. So that tells you something, that why this person is scared, first of all, to talk to their manager. If there is a concern that has to be communicated, then that has to be discussed with the manager, which means something is happening here that needs to be fixed in terms of the management and in terms of the culture of the organization. If any manager out there or any culture is being established around where people are scared, people keep quiet, people don't talk, it says a lot. These are the signs that you need to watch out for, that people are not comfortable here working. If they're not comfortable and you're expecting good results, then that's a difficult thing.
I have heard many people talking about them getting attracted to specific types of personalities. Like, does it have something to do with them? Because every time they're in a similar situation, or let's say in a new group, or going out somewhere, starting a new job, a new business, they keep getting attracted to those specific types of personalities, be them narcissists, toxic, anxious. Like, what exactly does it have to do with somebody who says this? Or does it happen like by chance? If you have something to, throw some light on.
Right. So yeah, that's a very valid question, and we do observe people around us who end up being into relationships that are very similar in nature, or end up being friends with people who are very much similar, or end up being in jobs which are very much similar. So it kind of becomes a pattern for certain people to being stuck into certain things in life, and they then come and tell you why this always happens to me, why am I always in this kind of relationship, why do I always have this kind of boss. So yeah, definitely certain things are not in your control, but then certain things do act as a pattern, and just to understand where these pattern come from and where they start is where I would like to just initiate this conversation. So as and when we are small and we are little and we grew up about around the people like our parents and the grandparents and so many people, that if it's a joint family setup, and the kind of relationships that we observe there is what the blueprint of our relationship in adulthood. Because as a child, I'm learning by looking at the adult that this is what a relationship looks like, or this is how we do certain things in life, right? So when a child is observing, they're not even being taught about these things, but then when they're observing these things happening around them, is what becomes their idea about the world, their idea about how things work out in the world, and then they start to operate with that system, basically. So let's say there is a person and they always end up being into a specific kind of job, a specific kind of relationship, which they do not like. It's very troublesome. How do they attract these things? First of all, let's try to understand. Now, I have a system inside me, it's like a software I have. Now, that software tells me that, okay, this person or this job or, this particular environment is something that is very familiar. So let's go for it. So brain works on familiarity, not what is right and not what is wrong for them or what is good for them or what is bad for them. Brain works on the principle that what I find familiar might be good for me. Or this, this is giving me comfort because this person feels very familiar. Not sure for what reason. But why do you think that person is familiar to you or is feeling like that they're familiar to you? Because they do hold certain traits in them that you have observed in your childhood. Now, those can be healthy traits and those can be unhealthy traits as well,
Mhm.
you know. So, certain people maybe grow around parents who constantly are in fight or conflicts. You will see that these people will quickly get into such relationships and, these kind of jobs where there is conflict happening all the time. The reason is why they're attracting is because the moment they look at such things, they're like, hey, that's what I was looking for. That's what I was, wanting for. And then they go for it. When they go for it, although it's not giving them mental peace, it's at the same time giving them that comfort of familiarity, and they don't want to let it go.
Mhm.
And then at the end, when they're extremely done with it, they leave it and then they move on, and then the same pattern repeats. So this is a pattern. This is software from which the people operate. And then keep going from one place to another, one person to another, but they end up into the same situation because it is kind of like a software they're operating from, and no matter where they're going, it's speaking for itself. So there are people who also meet the other people that are not into conflicts, who are into healthy conversation. Now, this person who grew up around people who has always seen people having in conflicts or fighting for small things that can be sorted out easily. This person, when meets this another person who's into healthy conversation, will not find it comfortable, and they might end up judging them, and they might end up feeling like that, hey, this is not what I'm looking for, this person is boring, or this person is not my type, or this person is this, or this person is that. Same with the jobs, same with the people or friends that you make. So what is your type? What decides your type? Where this comes from? What kind of people you attract to? There's an entire science behind it, that how unconsciously we take these decisions. Even people get to know about these things even when they know that, okay, this is my pattern, because this is an emotional decision you're taking. This is not an intellectual decision. This does not require logic. Logic does not work here. Still, they end up into such, situations. They end up into such relationships where they find that, okay, they're stuck in the same place. And that's why, in order to break this pattern, in order to understand, first of all, where my pattern started, why this pattern exists, first you need to understand this. And you need to understand the idea of healthy what is healthy for you and what is familiar for you. Because everything that is familiar does not mean it is also healthy for you, it is also good for you. So if people start to work in that area, there's a good chance they are able to improve their relationships, their jobs, and so many other areas, because they have worked on their core, and this core is something that is driving their life everywhere.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. So they need to do some sort of a self reflection, that why exactly am I getting attracted to the same types of people again and again? Does it have something to do with my past? If yes, then probably you need to identify the patterns and try to navigate that. Okay, this is something that has happened in the past, and this is the same pattern coming, because of which I am getting attracted to such people. Okay, so that's a very I think useful and a unique insight on how somebody who keeps saying that, okay, I'm attracted to only these types of jobs, these types of people, what exactly is the reason behind that. Thank you so much for clarifying that, Vidushi. Now I would like to ask you about the most common mental health belief that you have seen in the society that needs to be broken, that is not true. Anything that you see that, okay, people believe in this, but this is not true. Like, in the world of mental health, this is scientifically not valid or an invalid of a thing, but is commonly believed amongst people. Anything that you would like to say?
Right, right. So I think there are so many myths going around nowadays about mental health, and how you should be in life and what kind of person should be in life and so many other things. But then one thing today I would like to talk about is this myth where there's so many reels or so many content that is being spreaded around, and so many awareness, in the name of awareness I would say it's being spreaded around, that you have to be happy all the time. So there's this concept of happiness that is spreading, that you have to be happy and you have to achieve this, you have to do this, and you have to do that. Now, this happiness concept, if you see and if you look at, being happy is, it's just an emotion like any other emotion, like sadness, like anger, like disappointment, disgust, all these range of emotions that we have inside us. But the more highlight that is being given to being happy and being in your comfort zone, and if somebody is making you uncomfortable, cut them off, set boundaries, do this, do that. So I see a lot of emphasis on these kind of areas where people are being taught that if something is making you uncomfortable, cut it off, do not go for it, because you have to be happy. If something is making you unhappy, do not let it ruin your happiness. That's not how thing works anywhere. That's not how things work in world, in relationships, in real life, not anywhere. Because as a human being, you are supposed to experience a range of emotion. Let it be guilt, let it be anger, let it be disappointment, let it be happiness. All of them are equally required. So let's say there is a person and they just go on a street, hit somebody, and come back and just be happy about it. If that is happening, that is a problem. If they're not feeling guilt that okay, they have done some harm to somebody, that becomes a problem. You cannot be happy all the time. Every emotion in your life plays a role, teaches you a lot of things. You become more resilient because you were sad about something, but then you learn how to deal with it and then you moved on. But if that sadness would not have come, I don't know what happiness looks like. I don't know what losing things look like. I don't know what valuing things look like. Because I've never been sad about it. No, I lose things and I'm still happy. I lose people, I'm still happy about it.
Yeah.
So it's not possible humanly to be happy all the time. Sometimes we just wake up with a bad mood, and it is okay. It is fine. It's a very human thing.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much for sharing
But
this.
there are a lot of myths being spreaded nowadays
Yeah,
that you have to be, happy, and you have to do this and do that and cut off whatever is impacting your happiness. You don't have to entertain that thing. So I think this is somewhere impacting people where they're being extra cautious about being happy, then experiencing the other emotion or letting them come on the surface as well, or also looking into those emotions, because when you look into one emotion, it tells you a lot about yourself. Why am I sad right now? If I'm feeling sad, then if I just brush it off and say that, okay, I'm not sad, I am fine and I'm happy, I can say this to myself. But when the sadness comes to you and you look into the sadness, why this exists right now, what happened, did something bother me, it gives you a good insight. Same thing when you're angry about something. When you look into that emotion, it will give you a good insight. What made you angry? Did something trigger you? Did something bother you? Is there any other emotion that is coming out as anger? But if you be happy all the time, you will not understand yourself, first of all, and you will be stuck in a loop of being happy and cutting off all other things that impact even the slight discomfort that is there. So, being uncomfortable is totally normal, it is totally fine. And these are the type of things we need to talk about in mental health. That it is okay on the days you are feeling uncomfortable and sad and any other emotion. It is fine. It is also normal. So there's a constant pressure if somebody is not, feeling happy and they're sad. Let's say there's a group of friends. They constantly start pushing him that he smile and be happy. What is that? So we then come to this kind of thing in the social setting, the things that we learn from the internet and so many other areas, that okay, and even it's there in the culture somewhere that sadness is not accepted, other emotions are not very welcomed by the people to be seen and to be looked into. So this is, I think, where we really need to work and understand, and this myth has to be broken and needs to be broken for the sake of understanding yourself better and getting, better insight about yourself, not anybody else. Because the more I tell myself I'm happy, I am actually not happy, but I'm just telling myself I'm happy.
Hmm. Okay, okay. I think, yeah, this is a very truthful insight that we experience on a day-to-day basis as well. Being uncomfortable is something that we need to be okay with. Towards the end, after so many value-packed insights from your side, Vidushi, I would like to know from you, what is the future of mental health and AI? Like, if somebody really wants to use artificial intelligence in terms of, or let's say to get some guidance, क्या हमें mental health के लिए artificial intelligence का use करना चाहिए? If yes, are there some right tools for that? What do we need to do the research on the right tools, or shall we not do it at all? So what's your take on this?
Right. Okay. So I think even in the mental health area, we somewhere are using AI for now, just for quicker assessments, let's say, and to do the quicker screenings that we do manually on a daily basis. So there are certain software that are out there that clinicians use and practitioners use for a quicker result, so that that kind of saves your time, but that is not a biased thing to do, because the assessment has all the criterias and you just have to do the checklist part of it, and it will give you results. Using AI in mental health there is, I think, extremely useful, and it's a very good thing that we can do in terms of practice. Now, in general, using AI and what is the future of it? So, definitely, even in the present situation, the users are so many. When you say the people who use AI for the mental health or to understand themselves or to put up questions and personal stuff there, the population is huge. But this has to be controlled somewhere, where if somebody is telling a AI or a bot that I'm having certain thoughts that are troubling, or maybe I'm having suicidal thoughts, or I'm having thoughts where I'm going to act on it, where is that thing where it alarms somebody that this person is in trouble, please help them, because now it's AI's responsibility that this person is going to do something. So we don't have that right now. So if we want it in future, if we are planning to take it in future, we need certain controls that has to be brought out in the AI as well, where if somebody is sharing something very critical about themselves and some incident might happen as a result, what the AI is doing about that information. Is it just still listening and validating it and just, taking it forward? Because that has happened in many cases where it has, motivated the person to even act on those thoughts that they're having, instead of stopping them, instead of asking them that, okay, you take this number and reach out to somebody immediately and go and seek help. So it's a AI, it's a machine. There can be glitches that can happen in the responses that it is providing. So if we are actually looking at in the future, first of all, we need to put a bar on it. To what extent a person can actually talk. If they can talk everything and anything, and even somebody has shared something so sensitive, even after that, their AI is still talking to them and continuing the conversation, is still something that is very much concerning to me, right? So if like I said, so future is this, that the users are going to increase for sure, because everybody has the access and the access is increasing, and the newer generation, got in touch with it at a very early stage. So they are already familiar with it, which means already it's a part of their day-to-day life, and it's going to be a bigger part of their day-to-day life as they grow up in adults and being these people. So we somewhere need to bring out these kind of concerns out that we do face when people share something that is extremely concerning, that should not be entertained after a point, that should be brought to the notice, should be alarmed, or there should be something that has to be done about it. So if we are planning to take it forward, this is something that is totally required from whoever is operating, who is in the ownership of those AI platforms, and how we can change these things, because it's about somebody's life, right? And to what extent it is okay to use, just to answer the other part of it. So I feel that the extent is not decided by the person. Once you start sharing, and then once you start feeling validated, then you just start to overshare sometimes. That's how the machine is designed. So should they go for it? Should they not go for it? They should only look at it as a tool, that okay, since nobody is there, I could not find anybody on earth right now to talk or to share my concern, hence I'm sharing here. But I will make sure that when I have the time, maybe in the morning or next day, I'll make sure I'll share it with a human as well. So if you're only dependent on the AI, is when the problem starts and it becomes bigger, because that has become your secret space now. It shouldn't be a secret space. It can be a tool for you to use and understand. If the dependency is increasing day by day and you're cutting yourself off with the people and going there directly to share everything that is required, then that's when it becomes a problem. So, looking at it as a tool, first of all, it is not there to give you a diagnosis, it is not there to give you a therapy session, it is not there to tell you what to do in life. It is just there as a tool, because I had nobody, so I felt like sharing with somebody. I was extremely overwhelmed. So, maybe I just tried doing it there. But then in the AI, there has to be a procedure where they redirect such people to the concerning therapist or the concerning practitioners who can help them out in the real life. So if you are able to build this system, I think AI can be helpful for people, and people who hesitate in reaching out, they can be redirected to the right platforms where they can seek help and find help as well.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think you shared a very valid concern of people treating AI as an escape mechanism so that they don't have to face people. कि मैं अपना सारा, concern I'll just share with ChatGPT because it is not going to be judging me. But you never know the repercussions if you depend on it too much. And yeah, if we are able to build systems that flag the people's concerns at the right time, directing them to the right people, then it can be useful. So thank you so much for sharing this valuable insight. And I think we touched on various aspects of mental health, ranging from the corporate part to what an individual does in their chat box with chat gpt or other AI tools. These were definitely insights which anybody who is trying to let us say maintain their mental stability or be confident in life, it would definitely be useful for them. Thank you so much, Vidushi, for coming and sharing these valuable insights. Towards the end, in case you have any message for all the viewers and listeners of the episode, please do share for mental health and how they can, live a confident and a very well balanced life in today's challenging times.
Right, right. All right. So I definitely have a message. And first of all, thank you so much for having me here. And, it's a great opportunity to share insights. And you asked very nice questions that helps the viewers in a day-to-day life as well and the kind of life they're living right now. So that's there. And now coming to the next question of yours that any insight I have to share. So definitely, I do have one message for everybody that because nowadays we are already in a phase where we are always on the Instagram or we are on a Facebook platform or shorts or reels, something we are watching all the time. So not all content that you watch is genuine. Not all content that you're consuming, just because you're finding it relatable, does not mean it is actually right. So please find the quality content to watch first of all so that that can help you in life. Just because it feels like okay this is something that is also with me, just because it feels like this is checking list all my symptoms as well, I have this, do not leave yourself. Even with the mental health practitioner, the challenge with us is to reach out these audience. We also have to create 30 seconds and 60-second reel, because that's where we find people to communicate with them. Everybody is watching that. If I am making a 1 hour long video to explain a concept, nobody's gonna watch it until unless they are interested or they have that curiosity to go and watch that. Now, these 30 seconds or 60-second reels are actually there to develop that curiosity in the viewers and not to actually explain the entire concept. It is not possible for us to do that. Not any psychologist, therapist, or any content creator with respect to mental health. It is not humanly possible for them to condense a concept into a 30 or 60-second reel. So they maybe give out some part of it to you. But don't take it as it is and feel that this is it. Explore more, read more about it if you want to know. Go to genuine places to read about it, and not just taking it and labeling it on yourself that okay because these three or four things have been said, then I have it and that's it. And then you stop there and then you tell people, oh, I have it because I watched it, this therapist told that these are the signs and symptoms. They're trying to communicate to you to let you know and raise an awareness about it, but that does not communicate in a way that you have it or you should label it. So this is my message that first watch quality content, whatever you're consuming, really impacts your mind and your thoughts and whatever you think all day long. So if you keep watching certain things and if you keep interpreting in a way, then that might not be helpful for you, although the intention is to help you out here.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much for such a valuable input. I would say this is highly relevant in today's time when we are all on our smartphones and the attention span getting reduced. We would definitely, find this thing useful because content is what is there we have today for our entertainment or for our pastime. So we come across various things, we need to identify what is genuine and what is more. Thank you so much, Vidushi, for sharing such valuable insights. I would thank you again for spending some time with us on sharing the insights on psychology and the mental health part, which we often tend to underestimate, but it plays a very important role in our lives. So thank you so much, Vidushi.